Hi all, welcome to a new post today, and today is just not a post but a very new initiative by me. So they say that good things are, there's no time for to begin a good thing, and I thought that it's the best time for me to start with the weekly current affairs and dividing them into three parts. So the weekly current affairs for this week, that's from February 12th to February 18th, and this post is about the polity and governance, whatever happened with regard to your GS paper 2 mains UPSC. So this is helpful from that perspective. So without wasting much time, let's actually look into what happened this week with regard to polity and governance. So the very first issue is that Supreme Court said no to a sealed cover submission regarding the Adani case, and so we all know that because of the Hindenburg's revelation of stock manipulation and money laundering, the stocks of Adani Group have fallen down, and therefore the case is there is a petition being heard by the Supreme Court to protect the investors' interests, and questions have also been raised regarding the governance and the regulatory system in the secondary market. So Adani Group also called off its FPO after this news, and it lost a lot of its share market itself. So Supreme Court refused to accept the centre's submission relating in a sealed cover, saying that it supports full transparency in the case, and even refused to accept the suggestions for an expert committee. Supreme Court said that nobody should be allowed to question the committee as formed by the judges, and nobody should be allowed to comment on the merits as well. So the centre made a submission in a sealed cover, and the Supreme Court refused to accept it regarding the Adani questions. So the Supreme Court said that we will not accept any sealed cover suggestion because they want to maintain full transparency. Supreme Court also questioned the mechanism of short selling which came to the fore during the hearing, and let me tell you that short selling is a process where the person borrows shares to sell them in the market when the shares are having a very good price, waiting then to purchase back the shares when the price of the shares fall down, so that he can earn a money of the difference from which he sold the shares and later bought it back when the prices were less, and then he returns back the shares to the borrower. So short selling wasn't due news. The Supreme Court petitioned the petitioner regarding short selling, and let me tell you that officially short selling in the secondary market is not practiced in India. The bench also said the committee would be formed by the judges and no intervention should be done by the centre. So all is going around regarding the Adani issue. Committees have been formed, and also there is a submission, but the Supreme Court refused to accept it, and there is also questions raised regarding the regulation of the secondary market, that's the stock markets in the country. The very second news is about Sena's name. Now the Shiv Sena name and symbol going to the Shinde camp. So we know that Eknath Shinde had formed the government in Maharashtra just a few months back. So the Election Commission of India allotted the name of Shiv Sena and the party's bow and arrow symbol to the Eknath Shinde camp, in recognizing it as the original party founded by Balasaheb Thackeray. Now the decision by the Election Commission, who has the responsibility of allotting symbols and recognizing them, also registering and deregistering a party as well, said the decision was hailed as a victory for the Shinde camp and a great setback for Thackeray faction. Now the Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde also welcomed the decision, saying it is a victory of democracy. In October 2022, the Election Commission of India had announced that the Uddhav Thackeray faction would be known as the Shiv Sena Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray, with its new party symbol as a flaming torch, while the faction led by Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde would be called as Balasaheb Shiv Sena, that is Balasaheb's Shiv Sena. The split in the original Shiv Sena party began last year in June 2022, when Shinde's led 48 MLAs in a Bharatiya Janata Party backed coup against then Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray, bringing down the coalition government. Now the poll panel said that it took this decision based on the test of majority. So there was a test formulated by the Supreme Court in the Sajid Ali case way back in 1972. It is a three test base formulation to check the providing of election symbols to the party. So one of the test is test of majority, the other is test of party constitution, and the third is test of aims and objectives. So the poll panel said that it relied on the test of majority as the party did not submit the copy of its amended 2018 constitution that had been changed to become more undemocratic. So these three tests have been formulated by the Sajid Ali case in 1992, and these symbols have been allotted under the symbols order of 1968. Both Eknath Shinde and Thackeray had also moved to disqualify each other on the grounds of defection under the 10th schedule. So something related to this with regard to Speaker's position is also pending in the Supreme Court. Now, the third very important news is that the Supreme Court rules out voting by nominated members in the Delhi Municipal Corporation. So the three-judge bench of the Supreme Court, headed by Chief Justices D.Y. Chandrachud, directed that the notification for the election of mayor in Delhi should be issued within 24 hours. So the Supreme Court held that nominated members of the Municipal Corporation of Delhi cannot vote in the Delhi mayor's polls, and directed the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, or MCD, to indicate a date for conducting the mayor's polls within 24 hours. The court also held that elections for mayor should be held first, followed by elections of deputy mayor and the standing committee members on which the mayor shall preside. So the mayor is the executive head of the municipal corporation, and we have 74th and 73rd Amendment Acts constitutionalizing local governments, and we also have schedules which gives them related powers as well. So the court was hearing a plea seeking early holding of mayoral elections in the Municipal Corporation of Delhi. The plea was filed by one Mr. Oberoi, who was a mayoral candidate from the Aam Aadmi Party. Now, the bench, while deciding this, that the nominated members cannot vote, relied on Article 243R of the Constitution and Section 3, Clause 3 of the Delhi Municipal Corporation Act 1957. It said that the persons nominated by the administrator cannot have the right to vote. In doing so, it rejects the arguments of the Lieutenant Governor Delhi and the Municipal Corporation of Delhi that nominated members were entitled to exercise their vote to elect the mayor as well as the deputy mayor. Article 243R provides for composition of municipalities. Under it, Clause 1 says that all the seats in the municipality have to be filled by persons by direct election from the territorial constituencies in the municipal area, and for this purpose a municipal area shall be divided into territorial constituencies to be known as wards. So this is the next important issue. Number 4 is Aadhaar linking of the wage payments under the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act now has been come under criticism. This act was in news very much because it helps the rural people to get employment, that also assured employment for 100 days, unskilled employment, and it has also been very helpful during the COVID period. So it provided a wage security to many people. Now, activists under the Narega Sangharsh Morcha had said that the Aadhaar linked payment of wages being made mandatory by the union government is flawed, and many people are going to lose out their wages if this is made mandatory. Now, according to the government data itself, it says that 57% of the active voters will be excluded because they do not have their accounts linked to Aadhaar. So on January 23rd, the Ministry of Rural Development at the centre told the state governments that all the payments to the Mahatma Gandhi Narega beneficiaries should be made through Aadhaar based payment system, or the APPS, from February 1st, 2023. Now, to understand this, we need to know a little bit of basics regarding the NREGA wage payments. So, until now, the NREGA payment allowed two modes of wage payment to be done to the persons who are getting unskilled employment. One is account based and the other is Aadhaar based. The former, that is account based, is an ordinary bank transfer based on the worker's name, bank name, account number, while the later refers to the APPS, which treats Aadhaar as a financial address. Now, for APPS option to work, not only must the worker's job card and bank account be seeded with the Aadhaar account, but also must be connected to the National Payments Corporation of India, MAPR. Also, this is known as mapping. Now, if a worker has several accounts, as of it or usually happens, the APPS sends the wages to the latest map bank account. Seeding and mapping of a bank account is very cumbersome and involves very stringent KYC requirements, biometric and also demographic authentication. So this explains why because of the cumbersome process, after many years of push also, the maximum use of APPS form of payment by the union government has not been very successful, because a majority of the NREGA workers are still not eligible for APPS under the KYC norms. And according to the Ministry of Rural Development's own MIS report, only 43% of the NREGA workers are eligible for the APPS today. By making the APPS compulsory, the recent order of the Ministry of Rural Development threatens to create a situation where a majority of the NREGA workers cannot be paid because of the APPS system. So this is being criticized, and recently there was an uproar regarding this. So we needed to know why there is a criticism regarding the APPS linked payment system. Also, the APPS payment system has been mooted because of the various duplication of accounts and also rendering of accounts of those who are not actually existing, and also a lot of corruption. So to do away with the corruption, the APPS form of payment was being mooted by the central government, so that there is the direct beneficiaries get the advantages of the real wage payment rather than being leaked away into corruption. So the intention is good, but definitely the process is really cumbersome, and that is why many people are going to be left out of the wage payment. And this is being that is why this criticism regarding the government to actually change over and not make it compulsory to have the wage payment through the Aadhaar seeded mapping or the account. The next is 86% of polling was recorded in Tripura. So we know that the assembly elections were going on in Tripura, and the counting for the votes will be done in March 2nd. Now the Tripura assembly is a 60-member assembly. So the Tripura assembly election is actually being seen as a fight among the BJP, IPFT alliance, the opposition CPIM and the Congress, and also the Tripura's ADC ruling Tripura Mota, which is gaining a lot of weightage because of the demand for separate Tripura land. Now the winning party or alliance will need at least 31 seats in the 60-member Tripura assembly to form a government. The BJP, that is the current party at the centre, is looking to retain a power, and it is contesting from 55 seats, while its ally IPFT is contesting from 6 seats. So the election results will be after the counting of votes on March 2nd. Now, the sixth most important news is about the Adi Mahotsav. So, Modi ji opened the Adi Mahotsav that is being conducted by TriFed and said that the world has a lot to learn from tribes. So, it should be important. We should remember that during the recent budget presentation also, under its Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas and its journey through the Amrit Kaal, Prime Minister's mission for the particularly vulnerable tribal groups will be launched. This was said by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Now, the tribal community in India has a lot to inspire and teach us with regard to sustainable development. They are very known to the forests and also play a complementary role with regard to the government in protecting the forests as well, though shifting cultivation on its own also does certain disadvantage. India presents the tribal tradition as an integral part of its pride and heritage also on many global platforms. So the Prime Minister inaugurated the Adi Mahotsav, which is a mega national tribal festival at Major Dhyan Chand National Stadium in Delhi. Elaborating on the Vandan mission, the Prime Minister said that more than 3,000 Vandan Kendras have been established in the various states. So the government is taking a large number of steps not only to educate the tribals but also to economically empower them as well. Now, 90 major forest products have been brought into the ambit of the MSP. So this will give a assured income to the gatherers of the minor forest produce, that is the tribals, and this is 7 more times than the number in 2014. Similarly, there is also a growing network of self-help groups in the country that is benefiting the tribal society. Almost 1.25 crore tribal members are there in 80 lakh self-help groups functioning in the country. Now, this year's budget also speaks of the PM Vishwakarma Yojana that has been introduced for traditional craftsmen, where economic assistance will be provided apart from the skill development and support in marketing the products. The Ekalavya model residential schools have also gone up more than 5 times from 80 schools in 2014 to 500 schools up to 2022, focusing on the education of the tribal to bring them on par with the mainstream society. So the TriFed is organizing the Adi Mahotsav Tribal Festival as it does every year. Now, the Adi Mahotsav actually acquaints people with the rich tribal heritage and culture. This helps the underprivileged tribes to get a bigger market for displaying and selling their arts and crafts. The Adi Mahotsav is also an opportunity for the artisans to interact directly with the art lovers and get a first-hand feedback about their creations and designs as well. Adi Mahotsav establishes a direct connection between the masses and the tribal people. A special feature of the festival is Tribes India cuisine that created and presented a delectable form to suit the urban taste by these special tribal chefs. The crafts demonstrations about making of various crafts and diverse entertaining cultural performances were also organized and arranged during the Mahotsav. It is actually a full celebration of tribal art and culture in a holistic manner, keeping in mind that they form a very important part of the population and also are distributed in all corners of the country. The number 7 is Supreme Court is to pronounce an order now whether the Speaker, who himself is under a removal resolution, can disqualify legislatures under the 10th schedule. So we all know that the legislatures, both MLAs and MPs, can be disqualified under the 10th schedule for defection under Article 102 and 190 of the Constitution. So hearing a case relating to Maharashtra crisis last year, whether a speaker facing a notice for his removal can disqualify the MLAs in his assembly. Now, the Apex Court has maintained that speakers should be the first authority to decide on the disqualification. But the question arises, when the speaker itself is being a resolution is being passed for removal, can the speaker actually disqualify the MLAs? So under 10th schedule of the Constitution, it is a speaker of the Lok Sabha or the Legislative Assembly that decides on the questions of disqualification of the members that are facing disqualification under the 10th schedule. So paragraph 6 of the 10th schedule clearly says that questions relating to disqualification of the members of a house shall be referred to the Speaker, whose decision shall be final, provided that if a question which has arisen as to whether the chairman or the Speaker of the House has become subject to such disqualification, the question shall be referred for the decision to such a member of the House as the House may elect on its behalf. And the decision of such a member shall be final. Now, in the Nibam Rabia case or the judgment, the Supreme Court had said that the Speaker of the House cannot decide on a disqualification plea filed under the anti-defection law or the 10th schedule while a notice for a Speaker's removal itself is pending. So this question has been arrived with regard to the Maharashtra issue, where both the Eknath Shinde faction and also the Uddhav Thackeray faction have provided a resolution for the removal of the Speaker. So the 5-judge Constitution bench, which is presided by the Chief Justice of India, Chandrachud, accordingly said that it will hear the petitions filed by the camps led by the Eknath Shinde and his predecessor on February 21st. So the question has still not been solved. The other most important issue with regard to the judiciary is that the Supreme Court said that it is non-committed to hearing of collegial appointments. Now, a petition was submitted in the Supreme Court to reconsider the collegial system of appointments, and recently I've also discussed the issue regarding the appointment of Victoria Gowri by the Collegium as an additional judge of the Madras High Court. Now, the petition said that the court must direct to bring back the system of NJAC or the National Judicial Appointments Commission and revive it which was actually scrapped in 2015. Now, this National Judicial Appointments Commission gives the government an equal role in appointment of judges on par with the judges. So presently we have the collegium system of appointment, where only the judges, a collegium that is consisting of the Chief Justice of India and the senior most judges, decide on the names of the persons to be appointed to the higher offices of judiciary, that is the High Courts and the Supreme Courts, and also decide the transfers. The NJAC was struck down in 2015 and it was brought by the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act. The petition said that they wanted the NJAC to be brought back so that both the government and the judiciary can have an equal say in appointment of the judges. The petition came to the Supreme Court after the recent attacks by the Law Minister Kiran Rijiju, who called the collegium system of appointment as opaque. The collegium system was introduced, let me tell you, by the 9-judge bench in 1993, and that is the system that is presently being followed. The ninth most important current affair for this week was that the opposition, we know that the Adani issue has been making news, and it has also led to disruption of the House, the budget session at the centre as well. So that has been dominating the highlights for the whole week. Now, the opposition are demanding a joint parliamentary probe into the Adani issue. It demanded a CGI designated committee into the Adani group or a JPC. So the opposition parties have decided that they will ask for an adjournment motion to both houses to discuss the issue. Before this, the opposition had sought JPC probes into various other deals previously as well. So the Rafale deal was one, the other was demonetization, but the demand was not granted. Now, since the present government came to power in 2014, there has been no JPC set up until now. A joint parliamentary committee is set up by the parliament for a special purpose, like for a detailed scrutiny on a subject, and also it can be formed on a bill as well. It has members from both houses of the parliament and from both the ruling party as well as the opposition. And it is dissolved usually after it ends its term or the task has been completed. So how is a JPC actually set up? Now, a JPC is set up after one house of the parliament has passed a motion and the other house has agreed to it. Members of the JPC are decided by the parliament itself, and the members can vary. There is no fixed number for a JPC. It fulfills its mandate. It can scrutinize the documents and the terms of reference that specifies the mandate. It can summon people for questioning as well. It then submits a report and makes recommendation to the government. However, the recommendations are not binding. How powerful then is a JPC? While the recommendations of the JPC have a very persuasive value because of its composition, that is both from the ruling and the opposition as well, they are not binding on the government. The government can choose to launch a further investigation based on what the JPC has said, but it can't be forced to do so. The government is required to report on the follow-up action that has been taken on the JPC recommendations or the report, and other committees as well. Previously also, the JPC have been formed on various issues. The recent one has been the Bofors contract, the joint committee to examine the constitutional and the legal position regarding the office of prophet. So this is a very, very important issue because we have parliamentary form of system, its functions, procedures, etc. in the UPSC GS paper 2. Now, the 11th most important is regarding restoring the ecosystem services in the country, and we know that we have 12 new guests from Africa, that is South Africa, coming to India. So 12 cheetahs have come from Africa to India as a part of the MOU for translocation of cheetahs from Africa. Now, under the project Cheetah, and to restore, these cheetahs are being brought from Africa. So the first set of 8 came from Namibia, these 12 are from South Africa. The aim is to restore the species as a top predator and to restore the ecosystem as well as to improve ecotourism and economic development. 12 cheetahs have arrived in Madhya Pradesh from South Africa, and they were released into the quarantine enclosures of the Kuno National Park in Shiopur district. Now, 5 months, this is happening after 5 months after the first batch of 8 of the fastest land animal were brought from Namibia. which is another African nation. So they were bought by the Indian Air Force's Globemaster cargo plane and from South Africa. Now these cheetahs, 7 male and 5 female, are the first dozen from South Africa that is promised to deliver to India more cheetahs over the next decade. Now the African cheetahs are similar to the Indian cheetahs and they are the fastest land animal on earth. Let me tell you that they have become extinct from India because of poaching, hunting and loss of habitat and prey as well in 1952. Now translocation is in line with the IUCN guidelines for reintroduction. This is the first international translocation project and other conservation translocation guidelines as well. So it is in accordance with the international veterinary standards and protocols. Now worldwide, cheetah numbers have been on a decline. It is estimated that from 15,000 adults in 1975, the current global population is just of 7,000 individuals. So there is a need to save these top predators. The government of Africa and India have signed an MOU on cooperation for reintroduction of cheetah into India. So this is the 11th most important current affair of the week. Now the 10th one. The 11th one is the bill regarding the monuments, protection of monuments. So even the Director Principles of State Policy speaks about the protection of the heritage monuments in the country. So the ancient monuments and the archaeological sites remains bill is going to be introduced into the budget, second half of the budget session of the Parliament. The Ancient Monument and the Archaeological Sites Remains Act, which is an existing act, it is being amended now. This act was passed in 1958 and it provides for preservation of ancient historical monuments and archaeological sites and remains of national importance, and also for regulation of excavation in these archaeological areas and for protection of the sculptures, carvings and other objects, keeping in mind we have a very rich heritage of archaeology in India. That's because of the rich history. So now this act is being amended. So let's take a quick review of what are the amendments that are being brought. Now the bill amends the provision of permitting construction of public works in prohibited areas. So the act defines prohibited area as an area of 100 meters around the protected monument. Now the central government can also extend this prohibited area beyond 100 meters. So the act does not permit any construction in this prohibited area except under certain conditions. Now the bill provides for the permission for taking up of construction within this prohibited area if it is for public works. The bill for the convenience also defines public works. So it says that it includes construction of any infrastructure that is to be financed and carried out by the central government for public purposes. This infrastructure may be necessary for public safety, security, and also may be based on specific instance of danger to public safety as well. It also provides for a procedure to seek for permission of public works. It also speaks of the impact assessment of the proposed public works to be taken up by a national monuments authority to consider the impact of the works, including the archaeological impact, the visual impact and the heritage impact as well. So these are the provisions of the amended bill which is going to be discussed and be taken for the in the second half of the budget session. Now the 12th most important issue is a very good news for the people who need organ transplant in the country. Now in a major breakthrough to protect the right to life of people above the age of 65, the Union Health Ministry has amended the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization guidelines, that is NOTO. So to allow people above the age of 65 and who are in need of organ donation to get one. So this was done to protect the right to life. So previously people only below the age of 65 were allowed to avail an organ transplant. So protecting the right to life of this, now the central government has tweaked or changed the guidelines in the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization. So not only this, but it also did away with the age, not only doing away with age restriction, the Union Health Ministry has also is aiming to bring in a policy of one nation, one policy for the organ transplant, where previously, so certain other changes as well. Previously, patients who were in need of an organ transplant had to be domiciled in that very state to have an organ transplant in that very state, and they had to need to provide a certificate of the domicile to avail the organ transplant. Now there is no need for that. Now this has been removed by the center, and the center has asked all the states to allow anybody from anywhere in the country to avail the services of organ transplant in their state. So a person from anywhere in India can avail an organ transplant from anywhere in the country, and they just need to be registered in this on the National Organ Portal to avail the organ transplant. Also, the center has done away now with the registration fees that are being collected by certain states like Kerala and Maharashtra. So they were charging fees of 5,000 to 10,000 to the patients to avail themselves of the services of organ transplant. Now the center has also asked the states to do away this with regard to the registration fees. So the center is also introducing a chapter in the school curriculum regarding organ donation among the students to promote more awareness on the grounds with regard to organ transplant or organ donation. The organ transplants in the country, let me tell you, have increased from just 4,900 in 2013 to 15,500 in 2022. So the country bringing on par with other policies a one nation, one policy for organ transplant, protecting the right to life of people in this regard. And the 13th most important current affair is again related to health. So there is now a renewed focus to tackle the leprosy cases in the country, and the Union Health Ministry has devised a strategy to achieve zero cases of leprosy in India by 2030. Now, despite India being declared previously as leprosy eliminated in 2005, India still accounts for almost more than half, that is 52% of the world's new leprosy cases. And this drawback has come back after the COVID-19. So leprosy, let me tell you, is a chronic bacterial disease and affects the skins, nerves, lungs and eyes. A national strategic plan and a roadmap for leprosy elimination 2023-2027 has been devised. So the earlier gains where India was declared leprosy eliminated in 2005 were actually reversed because of the COVID-19, as a sudden decline was seen in the case detection numbers. Now, the ministry noted that with the decline in the detection of patients, the grade 2 disabilities also increased. The decline in detection resulted in hidden cases and also increase in grade 2 disabilities. This resulted in delay in attaining zero leprosy goal. The elimination of leprosy also has not been achieved and is unfinished at the subnational level, and thus achievement of zero leprosy goal at the state and UT is still unfinished and needs to be achieved. Now, leprosy in the states and union territories is still a public health problem. So in 2021-22, a total of 75,394 new cases of leprosy have been detected in India. That's because of the fallout of COVID-19. And a total of 1,863 have been identified with grade 2 disability. So the government is now working to once again ensure that India be declared a zero leprosy zone. Now, the 14th most important issue is with regard to raising the cabinet's decision with regard to raising of the Indo-Tibetan border police force. So, to strengthen the security grid on the LAC, where India and Chinese forces have been clashed last year and also in the recent months, where there is still no disengagement, the cabinet has cleared 7 new battalions of the Indo-Tibetan border force. And this will be helpful because they will patrol in the Dipsang Plains and the Charding Nala region of Ladakh. So with the tension in the Sino-India border refusing to abate, and China is continuing to sustain a large number of troops close to the line of actual control, the cabinet now approved introducing close to 9,000 troops in the Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force. And this will now raise 7 new battalions and also have a new sector headquarters. So with the IDPP being the first line of defense in the China border, this will strengthen the security on the LAC, where India and China have clashed multiple times, and also recently in the Tawang area of Arunachal Pradesh. So they have clashed multiple times in eastern Ladakh and also Arunachal Pradesh in the last few years. Indian forces continue to be denied access to many of the traditional patrolling areas in Dipsang Plains and also the Charding Nala in Ladakh. This will help to give IDPP more 100% deployment all throughout the year, and also they can afford rest because there are more battalions now and also better training for the personnel. This decision comes in backdrop of the recent clashes between India and Chinese troops in December last year in Yangtze region of the Tawang sector in Arunachal Pradesh, where several Indian troops were reported to have been injured. So that's the new the engagement between India and Chinese in Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh. Let me tell you that China claims the whole of Arunachal Pradesh and also does not show it as a part of the Indian region in its maps. So this is these are the most important news that we had for the week. The other most important news just is that the Supreme Court has upholded the formation of a J&K delimitation panel. So there is also the Geo-Heritage Sites and Geo-Relics Preservation and Maintenance Bill, because we are the signatory to the UNESCO Convention. So these are some of the important points that will help you to keep track of your weekly current affairs with regard to governance and policy. There are two more important portions of this. One is the India and world portion, and one is the economic portion. You can follow that in the next two posts for it. I hope this was helpful to you all to keep track of the weekly current affairs, and if you did like it, please do share, subscribe and comment, and until then, it's happy learning.